The dry-skinned finger caressed Ben's bare ankle as Ben stared down in horror. The face of pure evil stared back up at him with a bright, unsettling grin spread across his face. His bright red lips the same color as the blood that was now dripping down Ben's ankle due to the monstrous character digging into his skin with its long, crooked nail. Ben began to shake violently as he looked back up before bolting away, running quickly. As he ran, he heard thunder hit, and he looked up at the dark gray sky, cursing under his breath as he felt cold raindrops begin to fall. It was a heavy rain, extremely heavy, the type that had harsh winds and coldness mixed in with it. Ben looked back, terrified to see the monster standing still not too far behind him, with the same bright, unsettling grin on his face. He began to shout, wanting it to go away, trying to believe that it was only his imagination playing tricks on him. But as he began to blink and harshly rub his eyes until his eyelashes shut off, he realized it was in fact not a dream, or just his imagination. It was far from that. This was real, and there was no escaping of what could possibly happen to him. Ben shook his head, shaking off the droplets from his dark brown hair, and continued running. He didn't in fact know where he was going, but he knew he had to go far away from where he was. He ran and ran until he began to see houses and small stores again, indicating that he was back where he was supposed to be, home. Ben arrived at his front door and knocked on it roughly, snapping his neck back every moment to check if he was now safe. Ben turned back his head and looked forward, expecting his lovely mother at the door with warm arms open, but that was not what he saw. He saw something evil, something crippled, something terrifying. Its makeup was cracked, its lips were redder than a cherry, its teeth were sharp and dirty, looking a disgusting yellow mixed with the crimson of dry blood. Ben shook as he looked up at its eyes, yellow, glowing, beady eyes. He screamed and backed away slowly as the monster inched towards him. He curled up into a ball, hugging his knees and lowered himself onto his front porch floor, but the monster had embraced him, holding him tightly, not letting go. Ben squeezed his eyes shut before opening them again, looking astonished at what the monster had become. He took a long breath in through his nose, smelling his mother's perfume that she always wore. Mom. He looked up to see his mother with a worried expression as he looked blankly at her with confusion. Had I been imagining without knowing? He continued to not blink and not say a word as his mother led him into their home. She sat him on the couch in the warm living room and placed a blanket around him. She kneeled in front of Ben and held his hands protectively, looking at him. Honey, is everything alright? What happened? She asked, caressing Ben's smaller hand with her thumb. Ben still didn't say anything, staring at the plain wall in front of him. He stood frozen, speechless as tears subconsciously rolled down his face, then blackout. Ben woke up in his room, wrapped securely in his blankets. He squirmed around and sat up, pushing himself against his headboard. He looked to his nightstand and stared at the glass of water and analog clock, 11:33 p.m. He scanned his almost pitch-black room, the only light source being from the moon, checking if his imagination would play another trick on him. He nodded to himself as a sigh of relief escaped his lips, thankful that his mind had calmed down. But then, all of a sudden, the face was back, even more horrid, more terrifying, more demented. Ben breathed heavily, grabbing a hold of his bedsheets as he kept his mouth shut, holding in many shrieks. The monster came closer and closer, reaching out for Ben's hand. Ben shook his head and continued shaking violently until the monster was face to face with him. He breathed on Ben, making him shift in discomfort. Ben knew this wasn't his imagination this time. He knew for sure. Ben gulped before reaching out a shaky hand to grab the monster's crippled one, accepting the fate that he will be brought to. The monster insanely laughed as he dragged Ben harshly into another universe, into another world.
Don't be afraid, Ben. You'll float down here. They all do, like balloons, until the pin needle comes out, and they all go pop.